Hello my fellow readers, today I'm going to be talking about Spice and Wolf, the light novel series. Now Spice and Wolf has also been adapted into, I think, a couple of anime series, seasons of the series, and there is also a manga edition which I've never picked up. Recently there's been an audiobook released by Yen Press, and it is narrated by the voice actors J. Michael Tatum and Brina Palencia, who are the voice actors for the American dub of the anime. And Audible recently did a ginormous sale, and so I picked up the first 5 volumes of the light novel on audiobook, and then I decided to grab the first 5 volumes of the light novel from the library just to take a look at like what the printed version looked like. And I am actually a longtime fan of Spice and Wolf, but I was really only into the anime at the time. Light novels were still pretty new. One that was not new in general, not as a unit, but here in the States, they were still pretty new. There wasn't too many that were as released as there are now. So I never picked it up, although I was intrigued by it and I kind of wanted to, but then when I saw how many volumes there are, because this I think is still ongoing and we're up to like 22, somewhere in the 20s of volumes for this, so it still intimidates me a bit. But when I saw that they had an audiobook, that it was narrated by the voice actors, and they had a giant sale on it, so it was just a couple of bucks per volume, I took a chance and I decided to get them because it was that like 80% off, 85% off sale at Audible. Anyway, it was the great sale. So most of them were very, very cheap. I think the only one that was higher up might have been the last volume, which was 5. And even that wasn't expensive. Like, it was far cheaper than the light novels. And I've just been listening to them, and they're fabulously narrated. And I just realized how great the story is, how well it's written and told. The author actually does just have a great voice for telling these stories. I'll read the back of one so that you get the idea of what Spice and Wolf is. And I'll just talk about the series as a whole because I'm not going to cover each one independently. So, for Volume 1, the life of a traveling merchant is a lonely one, a fact with which Craft Lawrence is well acquainted. Wandering from town to town with just his horse, cart, and whatever wares have come his way, the peddler has pretty well settled into his routine. That is, until the night Lawrence finds a wolf goddess asleep in his cart. Taking the form of a fetching girl with wolf ears and a tail, Hullo has wearied of tending to harvests in the countryside, and strikes up a bargain with the merchant to lend him the cunning of Hullo the wise wolf, to increase his profits in exchange for taking her along on his travels. What kind of businessman would turn down such an offer? Lawrence soon learns, though, that having an ancient goddess as a traveling companion can be a bit of mixed blessing. Will this wolf girl turn out to be too wild to tame? That's kind of an interesting way to describe the situation, honestly. But yes, each volume just follows a different town as Craft Lawrence, and Hullo are traveling and selling the merchandise. But on top of that, there's a little bit more to it. So Lawrence, as he's typically called in here, is a traveling merchant, and he ends up in this town where they are having their harvest celebration, and there is mention of the Hullo the wolf. And I think it says he's leaving with wheat. Was he buying the wheat? Anyway, he discovers in his cart a wolf girl, and that turns out to be Hullo. Now, interestingly enough, Hullo does not refer to herself as a god, even though she is long-lived and would seem to maybe be, and a lot of the beliefs for her and her people, another part of the interesting dynamic that happens in these novels is from the paganistic history of the area. And I'm thinking this is more, I don't remember if they give like an actual things, but I'm imagining more of like the British Isles and their realm of paganism. And it's lately been taken over by a monotheistic, I don't know if it's 100% Christian or just monotheistic deity. because I don't remember how closely they keep to like traditional beliefs and history. But anyway, so there is a lot of that battle kind of going on throughout the series, where you're seeing the religious ideology kind of battling as well. But again, Hollow does not refer to herself as a god. She does refer to herself as the Hollow the Wise Wolf, and that she's a wise wolf, but never refers to herself as a god. And so I think that's interesting about how that's saying like she's a goddess, and she doesn't refer to herself that way. She has been celebrated among different towns that way with like paganistic rituals, and she's like offered her blessing on a lot of their harvests, but there's weird dynamic that I think leaves it open as to what is the real history here and what is the case there, which I rather like. And Hollow is able to take the form of a girl or her wolf form. She has like a magic pouch of wheat. Anyway, that helps her to transform into either form. And she can and does become a wolf at various stages throughout the series. Now then, back into this. So, yes, Hollow sneaks aboard Lawrence's cart and kind of wants him to take her around. Now, part of this is that, as is revealed throughout the rest of the series, Hollow is trying to get back to her homeland. She's had enough time in the Southern Realm and would like to visit her home again. She'd like to see who's left of her family, what they're experiencing and going through. And I don't know, Lawrence is kind of up for it. He's lived a lonely life, whatever. So they make friends and they start traveling, and then each of the tales kind of strengthens their bond and relationship as they're going, and it's just very cozy and charming. This is, again, one that is perfect for people who love cozy fantasy. If you've been getting into cozy fantasy, then Spice and Wolf is perfect, and it's amazing because this was out years before the big takeover here in the States and beyond of cozy fantasy, the big wave of cozy fantasy. Spice and Wolf was already doing it for years. And I think that was the charm even of the original anime. There was just such an appeal there that was a cozy feel. And yes, they have adventures, and yes, stuff happens. But in the end, it's the relationship between Lawrence and Hollow, how they interact, and that cozy vibes that are really so charming and keep people coming back to the series and continuing to read the series. So again, in this one, it's the initial get-together and, you know, how they interact. As the story progresses, you get to see bits of what has happened to Hollow's hometown, or what possibly has happened. We're not really sure because it's been so many years. Like, imagine it's been 100, I'm trying to remember if it's like 150 years or if it's been more, since Hollow was actually in her homeland and left. So she has no idea. She's just been off wandering and living her life as a wild free wolf person. And has no idea what's happened. Craft Lawrence, in his searching, does come across a couple of tales that don't bode well for her hometown. And so part of it is also this struggle with whether or not to tell Hollow that it could all be for nothing, that her homeland might be wiped off, that the people that she loved and knew might be gone. But again, I kind of feel like even if you read something, an account from that long ago, it doesn't mean that people wouldn't have come back and repopulated. I don't know. And including other spirits, like her friends who were spirit friends might be back there. I don't know. So it's just interesting because all they're getting is little bits of the account as they travel. I don't want to give too much away that happens in these other volumes because I think it sort of ruins the joy of reading it, but there are bits where they're more tested in their relationship and whether they're going to stay traveling together. And of course they always get entangled in some kind of weird village thing that's happening, and they help to try to solve it. And you would almost think, like, why does this always happen as they reach the town? But then you realize, I mean, you are reading a book series, and it'd be boring if nothing happened as they reach each town. But sometimes it just has to do with more simple things, like their relationship in general. And, also in the background, always, is like economic system, because Lawrence is a merchant. So it's all about buying and selling and how to drive demand, how to drive profits. It's fascinating. You wouldn't think it's as interesting as it is because, of course, people hear like, oh, economics, and they get a little bit nervous. But the way it's done here is so character-driven that it's interesting and it makes sense. And you want to see how they're going to get their plan to work. And it's just good. This is such a charming series. I'm definitely going to be continuing on with it. I definitely want to continue collecting the audiobooks because they're so well narrated. If you want very well narrated audiobooks, one, I would say hire a professional voice actor. But two, these kids just do a great job. They do a great job. I loved actually the dub for this. I think was a very well done dub. Sometimes there are times where you're like, clearly just stick with the subtitle, but sometimes you get really good actors doing the role. And I think this one is successful in whichever way you take in the content. You're gonna have a good time with Spice and Wolf. And yeah, I'm just not surprised. It remains like a favorite story of mine because it's so well done. And honestly, I can't recommend it enough. It's so good. And again, this is one to where if you are into cozy, you're gonna love Spice and Wolf. Great characters, great interaction. It's just fascinating. And again, I love the deeper content, the whole question of ideology, of religion, of how people relate to one another, how things actually would have progressed in early years, and transition. I think all of that is addressed here, and it's fascinating, as well as economics and how merchants did their job and how we can even see that today, like how things are impacted. It's really well done. And yeah, that's great. I would just get into Spice and Wolf. If you're worried about starting a big long series, you can check out the anime because again, it's so well done and very easy to watch and enjoy. And I really wish they would do more series because Spice and Wolf is so enjoyable. That's it for this video. Until next time. Bye.